Vault 11. Deep in the Mojave Wasteland lies Vault 11, a site where survival came at a terrible cost. After the vault sealed, the inhabitants were told by their overseer and the vault computer that one of them must be sacrificed each year, or else the entire population would die. Over time, the role of overseer became synonymous with next sacrifice, and elections for the position turned into brutal contests of manipulation, blackmail, and violence. This vicious cycle continued for years, until only 5 residents remained alive. At that point, they refused to offer another sacrifice. The vault computer responded by declaring their self-restraint a shining example to humanity and opened the doors, ending the experiment. Inside Vault 11, the physical state reflected the social collapse. Propaganda-covered walls plastered with election posters, skeletons strewn in hallways, and rampant radiation hazards. The experiment of Vault 11 stands as one of the darkest in Vault-Tec's history, not merely testing survival under harsh conditions, but pitting morality and community against the machine. Vault 106. 10 days after the vault sealed, the air filtration system was injected with experimental drugs without the dwellers' knowledge or consent. At first, many inhabitants slipped into quiet hallucinatory trances, but others quickly lost any semblance of sanity, wielding pool cues or other weapons in the darkness. The experiment spiraled out of control. Some residents turned violently unstable, attacked the security staff, and turned the vault into a horror show. By 2277, the vault is a wreck, its systems busted, its inhabitants either dead or maddened, the gas still seeping through the vents. Vault 106 stands as one of the most chilling warnings of what happens when human lives are treated as test subjects rather than people. Vault 114. Vault 114, appearing in Fallout 4, was built by Vault-Tec Corporation beneath Boston's Park Street subway station with the ostensible purpose of protecting the city's social elite. They promised luxury accommodations to members of Massachusetts society's upper crust, government officials, business leaders, and prominent families, but in reality, the accommodations were the very antithesis of luxurious. Multiple families were to share single-room apartments, communal toilets and showers, minimal amenities, all part of a hidden experiment to test how once privileged people would fare under stressful circumstances. Vault-Tec even hired a deeply unqualified overseer, a homeless conspiracy theorist known as Soup Can Harry, whose anti-authority mindset was precisely what the company wanted for chaos. Sadly, the vault's experiment never properly started. Construction was incomplete by the time the bombs fell, and few, if any, dwellers ever entered the facility. By 2277, the unfinished site had been commandeered by gangsters, rather than used for its intended social study. Vault 114 stands as a reminder that sometimes the cruelest experiments are those based on distorted promises, and worse still, when those promises simply never come to pass. Vault 81. Vault 81 was originally designed by Vault-Tec to develop a universal cure for all diseases. The vault was divided into 2 sections, one for scientists conducting experiments and another for regular residents who were to be exposed to various diseases. The first overseer, Dr. Olivet, discovered the unethical nature of Vault-Tec's plan. Determined to protect the residents, she sabotaged the phone list, ensuring that most of the scientists couldn't enter the vault. However, 3 scientists, Kenneth Collins, Jim Flint, and Burroughs, managed to enter before the vault sealed. To prevent the scientists from conducting experiments on the residents, Dr. Olivet disabled the disease delivery systems and sealed off the secret section of the vault where the scientists were confined. The scientists continued their research using mole rats, and with the help of a modified Miss Manny robot named Curie, they eventually developed the universal cure in 2204. In 2287, the sole survivor discovered Vault 81 and learned about its history. They were tasked with retrieving the cure to save a young resident named Austin Engel, who had contracted a deadly disease. The sole survivor could choose to use the cure for themselves or save Austin, leading to different outcomes for the vault's future. Vault 81 stands out as one of the few vaults where the residents were spared from Vault-Tec's cruel experiments thanks to the moral actions of its first overseer. Vault 08. On paper, the theory behind Vault 08, seen here in Fallout 3, was to observe struggle for leadership and control. The leader of the vault was chosen specifically as someone who would likely perish shortly after the vault was sealed. The main power supply was designed to fail 20 years into the experiment, and for good measure, the vault was equipped with 3 times the usual number of guns and no recreation facilities at all. You can imagine what they were trying to achieve here. What the Vault-Tec brainiac most definitely did not anticipate was the real outcome, wherein one of the vault dwellers, Gary, used the vault's cloning facility to clone himself lots and lots of times. These Gary clones proceeded to kill all the rest,
so Vault 08 eventually had only Gary men everywhere, all of them yelling Gary at the top of their lungs. Vault 95. At first glance, Vault 95 was constructed by Vault-Tec as a rehabilitation facility for individuals suffering from chem addiction. The vault was divided into two sections, one for residents undergoing treatment and another for a hidden stash of drugs. The residents were subjected to a 5-year program aimed at helping them overcome their addictions. During this period, they were isolated from their previous environments and provided with support to aid in their recovery. However, Vault-Tec had a darker agenda. A planted agent posing as a fellow resident was tasked with revealing the hidden stash of drugs after 5 years. The agent's journal entries indicate that the initial phase of the experiment was deemed successful, with many residents overcoming their dependencies. But the introduction of the drugs led to chaos, as some residents relapsed immediately, while others succumbed over time, resulting in violence and the eventual collapse of the community. Vault 19. Vault 19 in the Mojave Wasteland of Fallout New Vegas was part of a sequence of Vault-Tec experiments to see if the dwellers inside the vaults themselves would be able to do all the hard work required to make everyone go crazy. They were acquired by selecting the subjects as already paranoid and then segregating them into two completely random groups, red and blue, and limiting contact between the two groups. The first time the pipes busted in the blue sector, the fault could be laid on the reds alone, and down we go into intra-vault civil war. The fate of the inhabitants of Vault 19 is never explained, but we're guessing that it wasn't so they all got over whatever ailed them and lived happily ever after, but that they killed each other. Another science triumph for Vault-Tec. Vault 112. Vault 112 is one of the most disturbing examples of Vault-Tec's experiments in Fallout 3. Located beneath the Capitol Wasteland, it houses a virtual reality simulation known as Tranquility Lane, created by the sadistic scientist Dr. Stanislaus Brown. The vault's inhabitants are trapped in this simulation, living out idyllic suburban lives in a 1950s-style neighborhood, completely unaware that the reality is artificially constructed. Dr. Brown, who designed the simulation, subjects the residents to endless cycles of torment. He erases their memories, kills them, and resurrects them within the simulation, all for his own amusement. The player, known as the Lone Wanderer, enters this nightmare in search of their missing father. In Tranquility Lane, the player encounters a young girl named Betty, who is actually Dr. Brown's avatar within the simulation. Betty assigns the player increasingly cruel tasks, such as causing children to cry, ruining marriages, and committing acts of violence. Alternatively, the player can choose to defy Dr. Brown's sadistic game. By accessing a failsafe terminal located in an abandoned house within the simulation, the player can initiate a Chinese invasion program. This program spawns a virtual Chinese army that swiftly eliminates all the residents of Tranquility Lane, ending their torment. Vault 112 and its Tranquility Lane simulation stand as a testament to the depths of cruelty that Vault-Tec was willing to explore in the name of experimentation.
Vault 12. Vault 12, featured in the original Fallout, had a dark and twisted goal to observe the effects of radiation exposure. To achieve this, Vault-Tec intentionally designed the vault door to never seal completely, allowing radiation to continuously leak into the shelter. Over time, all inhabitants were either killed or transformed into ghouls. Vault-Tec's aim was to study how radiation would affect the human body, but the results were disastrous. Vault 92. The official explanation for Vault 92 in Fallout 3 was that it would serve as a refuge for humanity's finest musicians. Vault-Tec claimed the facility would preserve musical talent for the post-nuclear world. Someone at Vault-Tec clearly thought that sounded far too tame, so instead the vault's true purpose was to test whether white noise generators could embed subliminal messages and turn artists into an army of ultraviolent, highly skilled super soldiers. Gradually, the continuous interference drove many residents insane. Control over impulses became impossible, higher reasoning collapsed, and violence erupted. By the time the player arrives, all that remains are skeletal traces, bloatflies, and mirelurks inhabiting the lower levels. In the end, the vaults were never about protection, they were about control. Each vault was a mirror, showing us not the end of the world, but the worst parts of ourselves.